Good morning, my dear friends. I hope you all are doing great. Dear friends, today we'll be looking into electrolytes and non-electrolytes. So let us explain them. First of all, we will explain what is an electrolyte. Okay. Dear friends, an electrolyte is a substance which, when dissolved in water, so a substance which, when dissolved in water, dissociates into ions. So any substance, if you dissolve it in water and it gives ions, correct? That substance is known as electrolyte. So an electrolyte is a substance which, when dissolved in water, dissociates into ions and thus conducts electricity. So dear friends, so you take on a substance, you dissolve it into water, it will give you the ions, and because of those ions there will be the electrical conductivity through the solution. Which solution? Aqueous solution. So this is about electrolyte. And electrolyte can be further classified into two types: strong electrolyte and weak electrolyte, my dear friends. Electrolytes can be classified into two types. What are those two types? Have a look. The first one is, you can have a strong electrolyte or you can have a weak electrolyte. Weak electrolyte. So my dear friends, what is a strong electrolyte? Okay, have a look. Strong electrolyte. You know already, an electrolyte is a substance which, when dissolved in water, dissociates into ions and thus conducts electricity. Okay. So now look here, strong electrolyte will also dissolve in water, it will give ions. But why it is called a strong electrolyte? Try to understand. Remember, strong electrolyte dissociates, or you can also say ionizes, completely into an aqueous solution. Or you can say dissociates completely in water. Water is your aqueous. Okay. So my dear friends, a strong electrolyte dissociates or ionizes. What is the meaning of ionizes? It gives ions, cation and anion, completely. The dissociation is complete into an aqueous solution. Okay. And hence conducts electricity to a large extent. So dear friends, a strong electrolyte will dissociate 100%. Strong electrolyte will dissociate 100% in water. And when it dissociates 100% in water, then that solution will conduct electricity to a greater extent. That means large electrical conductance will be observed in that particular solution. Okay, containing a strong electrolyte. Now if you take an example of a strong electrolyte, my dear friends, you can take here NaCl. NaCl is a strong electrolyte. If you put NaCl, sodium chloride, in water, it will break into H plus and Cl minus, my dear friends. And we know that it's a salt and it's a strong electrolyte, correct? So now you take another example of a strong electrolyte, H2SO4. It will also break completely in aqueous solution. Yes? So obviously we call it as a strong electrolyte and it's an acid. Let's take on sodium hydroxide, NaOH, sodium hydroxide. It's a base. It will also break completely in aqueous medium, my dear friends. So in aqueous medium means I will put NaCl in water. So it will break into Na plus aqueous and Cl minus aqueous. So here dissociation will be 100%. Sulfuric acid will also break into water. It will break into 2 times H plus aqueous plus SO4 minus 2 aqueous. Then you have NaOH that we put it in water. In water it will dissolve and it will form Na plus and aqueous and OH minus aqueous. So my dear friends, here the degree of dissociation in these cases for a salt, for an acid and for a base, okay, the degree of dissociation is complete, that is 100%. So what is the degree of dissociation is denoted by term alpha. So alpha will be here 100%, that is degree of ionization. And when it's 100%, what is that? 100 upon 100, that is 1. So alpha will be 1. So alpha factor is 1 for a strong electrolyte, my dear friends. Let me write down that. So have a look here. For these substances, so here degree of dissociation, or in place of degree of dissociation in strong electrolyte is denoted by a term alpha, degree of ionization or degree of dissociation. It will be 100%. So that means a strong electrolyte will dissociate 100% and 100% will be 1. That is 100 upon 100, that is 1. So alpha factor will be 1. So remember, alpha stands for degree of ionization. For which electrolyte? Strong electrolyte. So what will be alpha for NaCl? Alpha for NaCl will be 1. For H2SO4, 1. For sodium hydroxide it will be 1, because strong electrolyte will break 100% in aqueous solution, my dear friends. And now, do you think such solutions can conduct electricity to a large extent or to a small extent? It will conduct electricity to a large extent. So solutions will conduct electricity, my dear friends, because these solutions will have large number of cations and anions. So please make note of this. And after this we'll look into weak electrolyte. Dear students, now let us talk about weak electrolyte. Okay. Weak electrolyte dissociates or ionizes partially in an aqueous solution. So when a weak electrolyte dissociates partially means to some extent it will dissociate, okay, but not 100%. So there is a partial dissociation of weak electrolyte. So weak electrolyte dissociates or ionizes partially in an aqueous solution and hence conducts electricity to a small extent. There is not 100% dissociation of a weak electrolyte. Strong electrolyte dissociates 100%. So alpha will be 1. But in case of a weak electrolyte, if you look here, the dissociation is partial. So when there is a partial dissociation, weak electrolyte will always give you less number of ions. When it gives you less number of ions, what will happen, my dear friends? The conductance of a solution will be very less. So that's why I wrote, and hence conducts electricity to a small extent. Okay. So let's take an example. Let's take on acetic acid. So this acetic acid, if we say this is a weak electrolyte, and obviously it is our acid. And remember, it is alpha. Alpha basically means degree of ionization. its degree of, so acetic acid is a weak electrolyte, it's an acid, weak acid, we can also call it as weak acid. So its degree of ionization, that is alpha. So degree of ionization is less than 5%. So degree of ionization is less than 5%, my dear friends. Okay? So obviously when it's less than 5%, which means alpha is less than 0.05. 5% means 5 upon 100, and 5 upon 100 is 0.05 for our acetic acid, my dear friends. And now look here. If you take acetic acid now, CH3COOH, okay, it is a weak electrolyte, or you can call it as weak acid. Now let us dissociate it, my dear friends. I am using these arrows. Okay, why I am using these arrows, I will tell you. Let us break it first in aqueous medium. So let us break it into CH3COO minus aqueous, okay, plus H plus aqueous. So acetic acid, the weak acid, will break into acetate ion. It will break into acetate ion, and H plus is nothing but its proton. But what happens if I shoot this arrow? This arrow will tell you that it breaks 100%. This arrow is a forward arrow. But if I write down it like this, these two half arrows, it will tell you that the weak electrolyte will reach to the equilibrium state. If it is a strong electrolyte, remember, equilibrium will not be established. But if it is a weak electrolyte, equilibrium will be established. Let us see how the equilibrium is established, in case of a weak electrolyte. So this weak electrolyte, what we have is acetic acid. So this is our acetic acid. Okay. So when acetic acid is dissolved in water, it dissociates partially and gives me acetate ion and proton, my dear friends. And you have seen here that degree of ionization of acetic acid is less than 5%. Okay. And less than 5%, it can be what? 4% also, 3% also. So remember, you can take the degree of ionization of acetic acid less than 5%. So let us understand it. How? First of all, I will take initial concentration. When you talk of initial concentration, you will have only acetic acid. Let us suppose you have 100 moles of acetic acid. Let us suppose, you can take 1 mole also, correct? I am taking 100 moles of acetic acid. Then acetate ion will be 0 and proton will be also 0, because we are talking about initial concentration. At initial place, you will have only acetic acid, no ions. Then let us see the change in concentration. C stands for change in concentration. Out of 100 moles, if I consider 100 moles as 100%, yes or no? Then what is the degree of ionization? Less than 5%. Yes? So let us suppose less than 5% here, we can take 4 moles. So out of 100 moles, if I take 4 moles are dissociating, are changing. So I will write down minus 4 moles. And 4 moles are basically here less than 5%. What is the 5% of 100? 5. What is the 10% of 100? 10. So if I take 5% out of 100, so I have to take 5 moles, but I am allowed to take less than 5%. So less than 5% I am taking 4 moles. So 4 moles means 4% of 100, correct? Now what is going to happen? Change in concentration. The 4 moles will ionize. So 4 moles, I will write down here, 4 moles of acetic acid ionize. Ionize basically means dissociate. So 4 moles will dissociate out of 100. So how many moles of acetate and how many moles of proton will be formed, my dear friends? So let us understand. Ratio is basically here, the ratio is here 1, 1 and 1. That is a stoichiometric ratio. 1 mole of acetic acid will give 1 mole of acetate and 1 mole of proton. So then 4 moles will give how much? 4 moles will give 4 moles of acetic acid. 4 moles of acetate and 4 moles of proton. If this is 10 moles are, let us suppose, dissociating or ionizing, then you will get 10 acetate and 10 H plus. Yes? But here 4 moles are dissociating, so you are getting 4 moles of acetate and 4 moles of H plus. Correct? So now, what is present at the equilibrium? So what is present at the equilibrium? Initial concentration minus change in concentration. So initial concentration was 100 minus 4. What is that? 96. And what is this 96? 96 moles. 96 moles of acetic acid are unionized at equilibrium. So my dear friends, out of 100 only 4 moles are participating. Like 4 moles are changing into ions out of 100. So total remaining amount is 96. And 96 moles of acetic acid are unionized at equilibrium. Okay. Now after that, how many moles are here? Initially there was 0. Then this is reduced or produced. Ions are produced here, obviously, so you are getting 4 moles. So obviously 0 plus 4 is 4 only, and 0 plus 4 is 4 only. So you have these 4 moles and 4 moles. These are the ions liberated by 4% of what? Acetic acid. 4% is less than 5% only. So these are the ions at equilibrium. So these are the ions at equilibrium. Now there is one term in your book which is called as ionization equilibrium. Which equilibrium? Ionization equilibrium or ionic equilibrium. What is this ionic equilibrium all about? Very simple now. Yes? Remember first thing, strong electrolyte dissociates 100%, so equilibrium is not possible. But weak electrolyte will dissociate what? Very less percentage. And here it is in case of acetic acid less than 5%, and I took 4%, 4 moles out of 100. So equilibrium is established here in weak electrolyte. So now I can define this equilibrium in terms of unionized and in terms of ions. Now equilibrium will be established, my dear friends, between these 96 moles and these 4 moles and 4 moles. There is an equilibrium is established. These 96 moles will remain constant. These 4 moles will remain constant, and these 4 moles will remain constant because the reaction has reached equilibrium. Only 4 moles have changed into ions out of 100, and now 96 will remain unionized. So 96 moles are unionized, and they will also stay the same. So this concentration will remain the same. Now if I tell you that equilibrium is established between unionized molecules of acetic acid and ions of acetic acid, yes or no? And this is called as ionic equilibrium, my dear friends. Please make note of this, and I will write down the definition. Dear friends, now you got to know that 96 moles of acetic acid are unionized, and now 4 moles and 4 moles of acetate ion and proton are present at equilibrium. Now this concentration will remain the constant. So there will be the equilibrium between this concentration and this concentration. So when there is an equilibrium between them, and it will remain constant. So equilibrium is established between these ions and this unionized, which acid? Acetic acid. And acetic acid is which electrolyte? It's a weak electrolyte, my dear friends. So I will define a term here, ionic equilibrium. Ionic equilibrium. So what is ionic equilibrium? I will write down. In case of weak electrolyte, it's not necessary that it will be acetic acid only. It can be any weak electrolyte you can take. In case of weak electrolyte, equilibrium is established. Equilibrium is established between, look here, between ions, these ions, between ions and this unionized. What is this unionized? Molecules of whom? Acetic acid. Ionized molecules of acetic acid. So I will write down directly established between ions and unionized molecules. I will not write down here acetic acid. Why? Because it can be, this definition is general. It can be used for any weak electrolyte. So in case of weak electrolyte, equilibrium is established between ions and unionized molecules. Okay. So my dear friends, this is what exactly you have right down here. But in which medium it happens? In an aqueous medium. In an aqueous medium is said to be an ionic equilibrium. So my dear friends, in case of weak electrolyte, equilibrium is established between ions and unionized molecules in an aqueous medium is said to be an ionic equilibrium, my dear friends. Please make note of this. Dear friends, now let us study about non-electrolytes. The substances which on dissolution in water, means aqueous medium, do not dissociate into ions and hence do not conduct electricity. My dear friends, non-electrolytes, or let's put, and hence do not conduct electricity, are said to be non-electrolytes. Let's take an example here, my dear friends. If you take an example of sugar, okay, if you dissolve sugar in water, it will dissolve, but it will not give ions. So it will not conduct electricity, my dear friends. Sugar on dissolution in water does not give ions, so it is a non-electrolyte. So sugar is our non-electrolyte. I can add on one more point here. In place of sugar, you can take urea also. Either you take urea or sugar. They will dissolve in water and they will break into small particles, but they will not give you ions. So when they do not give you ions, they will not conduct electricity. When they don't conduct electricity, they are basically your non-electrolytes. So urea and sugar, they are your non-electrolytes, my dear friends. So urea you will be having, let us suppose, diamine ketone, C double bond O and NH2. This is your diamine ketone, that is urea, and sugar you will be having C6H12O6. So they are your non-electrolytes, my dear friends. And before I go further, you must remember this important point here. It was Michael Faraday who classified substances into electrolytes and non-electrolytes based on their conductance. What is the meaning of based on their conductance? Some will conduct and some will not conduct. Those who conduct are electrolytes. Those who do not conduct electricity are what? Non-electrolytes. So this was the classification given by the Michael Faraday, my dear friends. Please make note of this. Dear friends, now let us understand about acids, bases and salts. Okay? Let us start with the acid. Derived from Latin word acidus, which means sour. So acids are sour in taste. Okay? Acids turn blue litmus paper red. If you take a litmus paper with you, which is blue, and you put it into the acidic solution, that blue litmus paper will turn red. It will change its color from blue to red. And understand that that solution is acidic. Okay? Now acid on reaction with some metals liberate hydrogen gas. So acid will react with the metals and it will liberate hydrogen gas. So let us take one example, okay, through which we can understand that how the acid can react with the metals and liberate hydrogen gas. That's important right out here. So here, my dear friends, if you take one sodium and hydrochloric acid, this is our acid. So this acid reacts with a metal. Metal is sodium. So you will be getting here NaCl, but let me take it 2 times because Cl is also 2 times. So 2 times NaCl plus 2 hydrogen will be here. So it will come out as hydrogen gas. So my dear friends, a metal on reaction with an acid will liberate hydrogen gas. Correct? So let us see here. If we take examples of some acids here, the lining of our stomach produces 1.2 to 1.5 liters of gastric juice. The lining of our stomach produces 1.2 to 1.5 liters of gastric juice per day. Okay? And HCl is present in gastric juice. The gastric juice produced by the lining of our stomach, okay, contains hydrochloric acid. So let's take on now the second one. Acetic acid is present, CH3COH is present in vinegar. Okay, acetic acid is present in vinegar. Then you have the lemons. Lemons will contain citric acid, and the orange contains ascorbic acid. And finally, the tartaric acid is present in the tamarind paste. So obviously, my dear friends, HCl will be present in the gastric juice. Okay, lemon will contain citric acid. Okay, orange will contain ascorbic acid. Acetic acid will be present in vinegar, and tartaric acid will be present in tamarind paste. Okay, so these are the things about acids. Let's go further and see the bases. Bases are bitter in taste and feel soapy, means they are slippery in touch. Okay, so let us see here. Bases turn red litmus blue. The acids were turning basically blue litmus red. Now these guys will turn the red litmus paper into blue color. You take a litmus paper which is red litmus paper you take, put it in the basic solution and it will change from red to blue. Okay. Then finally you have the examples, the washing soda, sodium carbonate. Nowadays this sodium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate, they are taken as salts. But previous time, you know what, they were taken as the bases. Okay, why we call them as bases actually here? Because sodium carbonate and the sodium bicarbonate which I am having here, it contains, actually it is made from sodium hydroxide and carbonic acid. Sodium hydroxide is a strong base. This guy is also made from sodium hydroxide and carbonic acid. Sodium hydroxide is a strong base. So that's why this washing soda and baking soda will act as basic in nature. So these are the two bases with us. Okay, but in actual they are the salts, but you can take them as bases also. Why? Because they can make the solution basic. They have a basic property. Okay, now let's go further and understand about the salt. Salt is formed from acid-base reaction. You take on acid and take on base, make them react, and that reaction is called as neutralization reaction. And in that reaction, when acid will react with base, you will be getting a salt and you will be getting a water, and this reaction is known as neutralization reaction. And now examples of salts are sodium chloride, barium sulfate, barium nitrate, then you have calcium chloride, and there are so many salts. So I have written few. And out of them, if you look at NaCl, what is the role of NaCl? NaCl is an important constituent of our diet. Yes, in cooking we are using NaCl, so it's an important constituent of our diet. I hope you have understood what are acids, what are bases, and what are the salts. Acids are sour in taste, bases are bitter in taste, and the salts are formed from neutralization reaction between acid and base. Please make note of this. Dear friends, when we dissolve sodium chloride in water, okay, let's write down the key concept. You know that sodium chloride is a salt and it's an important constituent of our diet, correct? Common salt. And you also know that between Na plus and Cl minus, there is an electrostatic force of attraction. So there will be electrostatic force of attraction. Force of attraction. If I want to dissolve this NaCl in water, yes, I have to break this electrostatic force of attraction. So that I have to separate Na plus from Cl minus. Okay. if NaCl has to be dissolved in water, then we ought to, or we should, then we should break electrostatic force of attraction, between Na plus and Cl minus. So if you are capable of breaking the electrostatic force of attraction between Na plus and Cl minus, then what will happen? We will be able to dissolve the common salt in water. And you are aware about the fact, remember, dielectric constant of water is 80. So 80 is the dielectric constant. It does not have any units. The dielectric constant of water is 80. What is the role of this dielectric constant? Have a look. Remember, the force of attraction between sodium and chlorine ions means cation and anion. Okay. So I will write down F is inversely proportional to the K. Let us suppose K is basically a dielectric constant. So there is a relationship. Now have a look here. This is our dielectric constant. This F stands for force of attraction between cation and anion. Okay? If dielectric constant is greater, my dear friends, what will happen? If dielectric constant is greater, then the force of attraction between cation and anion will be less. That means if dielectric constant is more, then the force of attraction between cation and anion will become less. So remember that. I told you dielectric constant of water is 80. So what does it mean? It means that the force of attraction between Na plus and Cl minus will be decreased by a factor of 80. So my dear friends, the force of attraction between Na plus and Cl minus will be decreased by a factor of 80. So 80 times it will be decreased. So when the force of attraction between like Na plus and Cl minus is decreased, then what will happen? Na plus and Cl minus will easily dissolve. It will easily break. So once again, it means that the force of attraction between Na plus and Cl minus will be decreased by a factor of 80. Okay? Thus, Na plus will separate from Cl minus ion and will dissolve in water. Now you may be thinking that water has a dielectric constant of 80. Yes? It's because of what? It's because of the hydration. When you put NaCl in water, it undergoes hydration. Water will add. And due to the hydration, what will happen? Energy will be released. We call it as hydration enthalpy. And that energy will dissociate Na plus and Cl minus. Once again I am telling you. Take NaCl, put it in water. When you put NaCl in water, it will be hydrated. Means water will be added to the NaCl. Yes, water will come and interact with NaCl. And due to this interaction between water and NaCl, some energy will be released. And that is called as hydration enthalpy. And that hydration enthalpy is also known as solvation enthalpy. Then that solvation enthalpy will be used to break the force of attraction between Na plus and Cl minus, my dear friends, and it will dissolve in the solution. And even in the thermodynamics chapter, I gave you one idea that if you want to dissolve a particular substance in water, then remember its hydration enthalpy should be greater than lattice enthalpy. That term also I have discussed. Please make note of this. Dear friends, we have different acid-base theories, my dear friends. So let us understand few of them. First of all, we will study about classical theory of acids and bases. Then we will study about Arrhenius, theory of acids and bases. Acids and bases. This is also known as theory of ionization. Finally, you have here Bronsted-Lowry, theory of acids and bases. Then we have Lewis, theory of acids and bases. Remember, my dear friends, these are not the only theories regarding to acids and bases, but in our syllabus we have only these many theories right out here, and we will study them here. So first one is classical theory of acids and bases. According to this theory, my dear friends, I have already given you the idea about it. So according to this theory, acids are sour and bases are bitter. So this thing is already done. Classical theory of acids and bases is already done. In olden times, what they were telling that this theory I am talking about, classical theory of acids and bases. Acids are sour, bases are bitter, my dear friends. So these other topics we will study tomorrow. Okay. So please make note of this particular thing. Catch you tomorrow. Have a great time. Yo.